The carriage door slammed shut like a coffin lid. Eliza Harrow pressed her palm against the frost-crusted window, watching her family's estate disappear into the gray horizon. She was 23 years old, unmarried by choice, and now being delivered like cargo to a man who'd agreed to take her off her father's hands. Duke Rowan Blackmore. War hero. Recluse. A man so cold they said even winter avoided his estate. She wasn't going to a wedding, she was going to a burial. Her hands trembled, but not from cold. This is how it ends, she thought. This is how I disappear. But here's the thing about being buried alive. You either suffocate quietly or you claw your way back to the surface. This is the story of a woman who refused to suffocate. It's messy. It's brutal. And if you want to know how far desperation can push someone, how far love can break them before it rebuilds, then stay with me. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. And hit that like button if you believe survival is an art form. Let's begin. The Blackmore estate emerged from the mist like something out of a fever dream. Eliza had imagined it differently. Maybe towers draped in ivy. Gardens wild with late autumn roses. Something romantic, even if doomed. But this was a fortress pretending to be a home. Gray stone walls stretched toward a colorless sky. Windows like dead eyes. And not a single curl of smoke from the chimneys despite the biting cold. The carriage lurched to a stop. "We've arrived, Miss Harrow," the driver said, his voice flat. She didn't move. Couldn't. Her fingers had gone numb around the handle of her travel case, the only possession she'd been allowed to bring. Everything else, her books, her mother's jewelry, the small painting of the sea she'd kept since childhood, had been deemed unnecessary for your new station. Her father's words, not hers. The door opened. A gust of wind sliced through her cloak, and she stepped down onto gravel that crunched like broken teeth. A butler stood waiting, tall, ancient, expression carved from the same stone as the house. "Miss Harrow," he said with a shallow bow. "I am Graves. His Grace is, occupied. I will show you to your quarters." "Occupied?" "Yes, miss." "On his wedding day?" Graves' face didn't so much as flicker. "Yes, miss." And that was it. No grand entrance, no receiving line, no Duke emerging to greet his bride with even the pretense of civility. Just Graves and the echo of her footsteps through hallways that smelled of dust and old decisions. She followed him through corridors lined with portraits of severe-looking men and pale, unsmiling women. Blackmores, all of them. Generations of them staring down like judges at a trial she'd already lost. "The East Wing is yours," Graves said, stopping before a heavy oak door. "His Grace occupies the West. Meals are served at 8, 1, and 7. Punctuality is expected." "And where is His Grace now?" "The South Library." "Will he be joining me for Unlikely, miss." Eliza's jaw tightened. "I see. Your trunks will arrive tomorrow. Is there anything you require?" Yes, she wanted to scream. Answers, warmth, a single goddamn reason to believe this wasn't a mistake, but instead she said, "No, thank you, Graves." He bowed again and left her standing there, alone in a room twice the size of her childhood bedroom and half as welcoming. The furniture was expensive but impersonal. The bed was made with military precision. There were no flowers, no books, no hint that anyone had ever lived here or ever would. It was a room designed for forgetting. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. This was real. This was happening. In 3 hours, she would marry a stranger in a ceremony she suspected would be attended by no one who actually cared whether she said, "I do," or ran screaming into the hills. A knock at the door startled her. "Enter," she said, straightening. A young maid appeared, barely 16, with wide, nervous eyes. "Begging your pardon, miss, I'm Annie. I'm to help you dress." "There's nothing to dress in. My things haven't arrived." "His Grace, he had something sent up." Annie gestured to a garment bag draped over a chair Eliza hadn't noticed. "For the ceremony." Eliza walked over and unzipped it slowly. Inside was a wedding dress. It was beautiful. Obscenely so. Ivory silk with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Pearls sewn along the bodice in patterns that probably cost more than her father's annual income. It was the kind of dress a man bought when he wanted to display wealth, not affection. It's lovely, Annie whispered. It's a costume, Eliza said quietly, but she put it on anyway, because what else was there to do? Annie worked quickly, lacing the back, pinning Eliza's dark hair into an elegant twist, dabbing rouge onto her pale cheeks. When she finished, Eliza looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger, a beautiful, expensive stranger being prepared for sale. You look like a princess, Annie said with genuine awe. Eliza smiled sadly. Princesses get to choose their princes. Annie didn't know what to say to that. Another knock. Graves again. It's time, Miss Harrow. The ceremony was held in a small chapel attached to the estate. Eliza walked alone down an aisle, flanked by exactly 7 people. Graves, Annie, 3 other servants she didn't recognize, and 2 men in military dress who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. And at the altar, waiting with his hands clasped behind his back like a man about to receive a report on crop yields, stood Duke Rowan Blackmore. He was taller than she'd expected. Broad-shouldered, rigid posture, dark hair cut short in a style that suggested function over fashion. His face was hard, sharp jawline, straight nose, eyes the color of smoke. Handsome, she supposed, in the way a blade is handsome. He didn't look at her as she approached. Not once. The officiant, a trembling old priest who seemed barely awake, began reciting the vows in a monotone that sucked any remaining romance from the air. Do you, Rowan Elias Blackmore, take this woman? I do. Flat. Immediate. Like signing a contract. The priest blinked, then turned to Eliza. And do you, Eliza Marie Harrow, take this man? She hesitated. For just a second, she considered saying no. Considered turning around and walking out of this chapel, this estate, this life that had been arranged for her like furniture in a room she'd never wanted. But where would she go? Her father had made it clear this marriage secured a debt. Refused it, and her younger sisters would pay the price. She'd been sacrificed so they could have choices. So she swallowed the bitterness rising in her throat and said, I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. No kiss. Rowan just turned and walked out. Eliza stood there, still holding the wilted bouquet Annie had thrust into her hands, watching her new husband disappear through the chapel doors without a backward glance. Congratulations, Your Grace, Graves said quietly. She looked at him. What? You are now Duchess Blackmore. Right. She was a duchess now. She felt exactly the same. Dinner was served in a dining room that could seat 30, but currently held 2. Eliza sat at one end of the long table. Rowan sat at the other, an expanse of polished mahogany between them, like a demilitarized zone. He ate with mechanical efficiency. She barely touched her food. The estate is quite large, she said finally, because the silence was suffocating. Yes. How many acres? 1,200. And you manage it yourself? Primarily. She set down her fork. Are you going to speak in full sentences, or is this how we're spending the next 40 years? For the first time, he looked up. His eyes met hers, and she realized 2 things simultaneously. 1, they were colder than she'd thought. And 2, there was something underneath the cold. Something deliberate. I didn't ask for this either, he said. Then why agree to it? Duty. Ah, duty. She laughed, sharp and humorless. Well, I'm so glad we're both suffering for a good cause. His jaw tightened. You'll have everything you need, comfort, safety, freedom to manage your own affairs within reason. How generous. I'm offering you more than most women in your position receive. You're offering me a cage with nice curtains. Rowan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I have work to finish. Of course you do. He paused at the doorway, his back to her. The estate needs improvements. If you're inclined to assist, Graves can provide details. And then he was gone. Eliza sat alone at the table, staring at her untouched plate, and felt the first crack in her chest. Not heartbreak? Not yet. Just the quiet, creeping realization that this was her life now. She didn't sleep that night. How could she? The bed was too big, the room too quiet, And every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's face as he'd handed her into the carriage. You'll understand someday, Eliza. Sacrifice is the burden of eldest daughters. She'd wanted to scream, to tell him that she wasn't a pawn, wasn't a bargaining chip, wasn't something to be traded away when debts came due. But she'd stayed silent because that's what good daughters did. Well, she wasn't feeling particularly good anymore. At dawn, she dressed in one of the plain gowns from the trunk that had finally arrived and went exploring. The estate was massive, room after room filled with furniture draped in white sheets like ghosts of a life never lived, hallways that branched into more hallways, staircases leading to locked doors. And outside, through the tall windows, she could see the grounds. They were dying. Fields gone fallow, gardens choked with weeds, fences sagging under their own weight. It was like the land itself had given up. She found Graves in the kitchen overseeing breakfast preparations. The grounds, Benton, she said without preamble. What happened? He looked up, surprised. Your Grace, I didn't expect. What happened to them? Graves set down his ledger slowly. His Grace's father passed 8 years ago. The estate was not well managed in his final years. By the time the Duke inherited, much of the damage was done. And Rowan hasn't fixed it? His Grace has been focused on other matters, such as? Graves hesitated. That would be better discussed with His Grace directly. He doesn't discuss anything. No, Graves admitted. He does not. Eliza crossed her arms. You said he mentioned I could help with improvements. He did. Then I want to see everything. The books, the tenant records, the crop reports, all of it. Graves' eyebrows rose slightly, the most emotion she'd seen from him. Your Grace, that's highly irregular. Estate management is typically handled by men who've let 1,200 acres turn into a graveyard? She held his gaze. I'm here, Graves. I'm not going anywhere. So I can either spend my days staring at walls, or I can do something useful. Your choice, which one drives you insane first. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Very well, Your Grace. I'll have the records brought to the morning room. Thank you. She turned to leave, then stopped. Graves, does the Duke ever smile? The old man's expression softened. Not in a very long time, Your Grace. Why not? Perhaps, Graves said carefully, he's forgotten how. The records were a disaster. Eliza spread them across the table in the morning room. Ledgers stained with water damage, tenant complaints dating back 5 years, maintenance requests that had never been addressed. It was worse than she'd thought. The estate wasn't just neglected. It was bleeding money. She worked through the morning and into the afternoon, making notes, creating lists, cross-referencing numbers until her head ached. She was so absorbed that she didn't hear the door open. What are you doing? She looked up sharply. Rowan stood in the doorway, still in his riding coat, mud on his boots, eyes fixed on the chaos she'd created. Working, she said. These are private records. You said I could help with improvements. I'm helping. He stepped closer, scanning the papers. You have no experience with... I ran my father's household for 6 years after my mother died. I know how to read a ledger. This isn't a household. It's an estate with 200 tenants, and you're losing money on every single one of them because you're charging rent 50% below market value and spending nothing on infrastructure. She held up a sheet. Your north fields haven't been rotated in 4 years. Your irrigation system is from your grandfather's time, and you have 3 families living in cottages that should have been condemned a decade ago. Rowan's expression didn't change. I'm aware. Then why haven't you fixed it? That's not your concern. It is now. She stood, facing him across the table. You married me for duty, remember? Well, here's mine. I'm not going to sit in that room and embroider pillows while this place falls apart. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. The words came out sharper than she'd intended, echoing in the quiet room. Rowan's jaw worked. For a moment, she thought he might actually answer, might let something slip past that impenetrable wall he'd built. Instead, he said, Do what you want. Just stay out of my way. And he left. Eliza sank back into her chair, hands shaking. Fine, she thought viciously. I will. Tan. Over the next 2 weeks, Eliza threw herself into the estate with the kind of fury that comes from having nowhere else to put your anger. She met with tenants, walking miles across muddy fields to see their homes, hear their complaints, document their needs. Most were shocked that the new Duchess even cared. Some were suspicious, but slowly, cautiously, they began to talk. "The Duke's a good man," one farmer told her. "A weathered woman named Clara with 3 young children. Doesn't push us when harvests are bad, but he won't take help neither, won't invest. It's like he's just waiting for it all to end." "It won't," Eliza said firmly. "Not if I have anything to say about it." She hired laborers to repair roofs, negotiated with suppliers for better prices on seed, reorganized the household staff, cutting waste and redistributing workloads. She worked 14-hour days, falling into bed exhausted and waking before dawn to start again. And Rowan? He watched. She'd catch glimpses of him sometimes, standing at a window as she directed workers, riding past as she inspected fences, sitting at his desk when she delivered reports to Graves. Always watching, never speaking. It was maddening. "Does he approve?" she asked Graves one evening. "He hasn't said otherwise." "That's not an answer." Graves smiled faintly. "With his grace, silence is approval. Disapproval is much louder." "Has he ever disapproved of me?" "No, Your Grace." It should have been comforting. It wasn't, because approval without acknowledgement felt worse than rejection. It meant she was doing everything right and still not breaking through, still not reaching him, still completely, utterly alone. So, the first snow came in late November. Eliza woke to a world transformed, white and quiet and almost beautiful. She dressed warmly and went outside, breathing in air so cold it hurt. The estate looked different under snow, softer, like maybe there was hope buried under all that ice. She was walking through the garden, or what used to be a garden, when she heard voices. Men's voices. Angry. She followed the sound to the south field, where a group of workers had gathered around something. Someone. Rowan. He was facing down a man twice his size, a laborer she didn't recognize, red-faced and shouting. "Can't keep doing this. You pay us half what we're worth and expect miracles." "Then leave," Rowan said flatly. "Oh, I will. But not before I tell you what everyone's too scared to say. You're running this place into the ground because you don't give a damn about anyone but yourself." Eliza saw Rowan's hand curl into a fist. She moved without thinking, stepping between them. "That's enough," she said sharply. Both men stared at her. "Your Grace," the laborer stammered. "I didn't mean—" "What's your name?" "Thomas, ma'am." "Thomas, you're right. The wages are too low. I've been reviewing the books and I'm working on adjustments, but threatening the Duke isn't going to speed that process." Thomas blinked. "You're working on it?" "Yes. And if you have specific concerns, bring them to Graves. He'll pass them to me." Thank you, Your Grace." He left, the other workers trailing behind, leaving Eliza alone with Rowan. She turned to him. "You were going to hit him." "No." Your fist was clenched. "That doesn't mean—" "You need to pay them more." Rowan's eyes narrowed. "You don't dictate." "I'm not dictating. I'm telling you what's going to happen if you want this estate to survive. People work harder when they're valued. Right now they feel expendable." "They are expendable." The words hit like a slap. Eliza stepped closer, voice low and fierce. "Is that what you think? That people are just pieces you move around until they break?" "I think," Rowan said coldly, "that you've been here 3 weeks and think you understand everything. I understand that you've given up." His face went rigid. "You know nothing about me. Because you won't let me." The words hung in the frozen air. Rowan stared at her, something flickering behind his eyes. Anger, maybe, or pain, or something else she couldn't name. Then he turned and walked away. Eliza watched him go, her breath coming in short bursts, and felt something crack deeper. Not her heart breaking, her patience. That night she didn't go to dinner. She sat in her room, staring at the fire, replaying the fight in her head. "You know nothing about me." He was right. She didn't. But whose fault was that? A knock at the door. Annie entered with a tray. "You missed supper, Your Grace. I brought—" Did he ask where I was? Annie hesitated. No, ma'am. Of course not. Eliza took the tray mechanically. Thank you, Annie. The girl lingered. Your Grace, can I say something? Please. Everyone's talking about what you're doing. The repairs, the wages, the way you actually listen. No one's done that in, well, ever. Annie twisted her apron. I just wanted you to know it matters. You matter. Eliza's throat tightened. Thank you. After Annie left, she sat alone with those words. You matter. It was the first time since arriving that anyone had said it, and it made her realize something terrible. She was starting to care, not just about the estate or the tenants or the work. She was starting to care about him, about the man who wouldn't speak, wouldn't smile, wouldn't let her in. The man who watched from windows and disappeared into libraries and carried himself like someone who'd long ago decided he didn't deserve warmth. And caring about Rowan Blackmore, she was beginning to understand, was the most dangerous thing she could possibly do. Because you can't break a heart that was never offered, but you can destroy yourself trying to reach one that's locked away. December came with storms. Eliza pushed harder, organizing relief for tenants whose roofs leaked, arranging food deliveries, working side by side with laborers to reinforce structures before the worst of winter hit. She barely saw Rowan. He was there, always on the periphery, but they didn't speak, didn't even look at each other during the few meals they shared. It was like they were strangers living in the same tomb, until the night she found him in the library. She'd gone looking for a book, something, anything to distract from the loneliness. The South Library was supposed to be empty. It wasn't. Rowan sat in a leather chair by the fire, a glass of whiskey in one hand, staring at nothing. She should have left, should have backed away quietly. Instead, she heard herself say, "Can't sleep either?" He looked up, surprised. "I thought you'd gone to bed." Tried, couldn't. A long pause, then, shockingly, he said, "Sit, if you want." She did, taking the chair across from him, the fire crackling between them. They sat in silence for a while. Surprisingly, it wasn't uncomfortable. "You've done good work," Rowan said finally. Eliza glanced at him. "Pardon?" "The estate, the tenants, you've—" He paused, searching for words. "You've helped." It was the closest thing to praise she'd heard from him. "You could have done it yourself, she said quietly. "No." His voice was rough. "I couldn't." "Why not?" He didn't answer. Eliza leaned forward. "Rowan, why not?" He took a long drink, then set the glass down. When he spoke, his voice was so low she almost didn't hear it. "Because I don't deserve to fix things I've broken." The words landed like stones. "What did you break?" she whispered. But he stood abruptly, the moment shattering. "It's late. You should rest." "Rowan." "Good night, Eliza." And once again he left her sitting alone. But this time she'd seen something. A crack. Small, barely visible, but real. And she realized with devastating clarity, he wasn't cold. He was scared. The crack she'd seen didn't widen. It sealed itself shut by morning. Rowan returned to his routine of avoidance, disappearing before dawn, returning after dark, eating meals in his study when he bothered to eat at all. The library conversation might as well have been a dream, but Eliza couldn't forget it. I don't deserve to fix things I've broken. What had he broken? Who had he lost? And why did he wear his guilt like armor? She wanted to ask, wanted to corner him in one of those endless hallways and demand answers. But every time she got close, he found a way to slip away like smoke through her fingers. So she stopped chasing. If he wanted to hide, fine. She had work to do. By mid-December, the estate was starting to breathe again. 3 cottages had new roofs. The north fields were prepped for spring planting. Wages had been raised. Not as much as she wanted, but Rowan had signed off on a 15% increase without comment, and she'd learned to take victories where she could find them. The tenants were noticing. More than that, they were responding. "Your Grace," Clara called out one morning as Eliza trudged through ankle-deep snow to inspect a drainage issue. "We've something to show you." She followed the older woman to the communal barn where a group of farmers had gathered. Inside, they'd constructed new storage bins, proper ones, with ventilation and raised floors to prevent rot. "We figured," Clara said, a bit shy, "if you're working this hard for us, least we could do is stop losing half the harvest to mold." Eliza's throat tightened. "You built these yourselves?" "I took a few evenings, but we managed. Clara, this is wonderful. It's thanks, Your Grace, for giving a damn." The other farmers nodded, murmuring agreement. One of the younger men, Thomas, the same one who'd nearly fought Rowan, stepped forward. "We know the Duke don't talk much," he said carefully, "but we wanted you to know you're making a difference, real difference." She managed to hold it together until she was back in the manor. Then she locked herself in her room and cried for the first time since her wedding day. Not from sadness, from the overwhelming, terrifying realization that she'd found purpose in this place, that she was building something that mattered, that she was becoming someone she actually liked. And it was all happening in a marriage where her husband couldn't stand to be in the same room with her. Annie found her an hour later, face blotchy, eyes red. "Your Grace? Are you ill?" "No, I'm fine." "You don't look fine." Eliza laughed wetly. "I'm married to a man who treats me like a piece of furniture. I'm fine is relative." Annie hesitated, then sat on the edge of the bed. "Can I tell you something? About the Duke? Please. He wasn't always like this. I've been here since I was 12. My mom worked in the kitchens before she passed, and I remember when the old Duke was still alive. Rowan, His Grace, he was different then. Quieter than most, but not cold, not like now." "What changed?" Annie's face clouded. "His brother died. Edmund. He was the eldest, supposed to inherit everything, but there was an accident during the war. Edmund was commanding a regiment, and Rowan was his second. Something went wrong. Edmund didn't come back." Eliza's stomach dropped. "Rowan was there? He was the one who brought the body home, Isha. Oh, God." The old Duke blamed him, said Rowan should have protected Edmund, should have died instead. Spent the last 2 years of his life making sure Rowan knew he was the wrong son. Annie twisted her apron. "His Grace inherited because he had to, not because anyone wanted him to. I think he believes he's just keeping the seat warm for a dead man." The pieces clicked into place. The guilt, the isolation, the way he moved through the estate like a ghost haunting his own life. "He thinks he doesn't deserve any of this," Eliza whispered. "I think he doesn't believe he deserves anything good at all." After Annie left, Eliza sat in the growing darkness and felt something shift in her chest. She'd been angry at Rowan for shutting her out. Angry at the coldness, the silence, the walls. But he wasn't punishing her. He was punishing himself. And she had no idea how to reach someone who decided they didn't deserve to be reached. The winter deepened. Christmas came and went without celebration. Rowan disappeared entirely for 3 days, returning gaunt and silent. Eliza spent the holiday distributing gifts to the tenant families, trying to pretend her heart wasn't slowly fossilizing in her chest. January brought ice storms that knocked out half the fences and trapped everyone indoors for weeks. Eliza worked from the morning room, managing supplies, coordinating repairs for when the weather broke. She saw Rowan exactly twice, once passing in a hallway, once at dinner when Graves basically forced them both to show up. They ate in silence. She left before dessert. This was her life now. Work and loneliness and the growing, gnawing fear that she'd made a terrible mistake thinking she could survive this. But then February arrived, and with it, a complication she hadn't anticipated. His name was Marcus Aldridge. He arrived on a clear, cold morning, a friend of Rowan's from the military, passing through the area and stopping to pay respects. Tall, blonde, easy smile. The kind of man who walked into a room and made it feel warmer. Everything Rowan wasn't. "Duchess Blackmore," he said, bowing over her hand at breakfast. "Marcus Aldridge. I served with your husband in the war. It's an honor to finally meet you." "The honor is mine, Mr. Aldridge. Please, call me Marcus. Any friend of Rowan's is a friend of mine." He glanced at Rowan, who was eating toast with the enthusiasm of a man chewing leather. "Though I have to say, old friend, you didn't mention your wife was so charming." "Didn't I?" Rowan said flatly. Marcus laughed. Still a conversationalist, I see. Over the next few days, Marcus became a fixture at meals. He was easy to talk to, asking about her work on the estate, laughing at her dry observations, treating her like an actual human being instead of an inconvenient obligation. It was intoxicating. "You've done remarkable things here," Marcus said one afternoon as they walked the grounds. Rowan had, predictably, declined to join them. "The tenants won't stop talking about you. You've earned their loyalty in 3 months. That's no small feat." "I just treated them with basic decency." "That's rarer than you think." He paused, his expression turning serious. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask." "Are you happy?" The question hit like a punch. She searched for words. "I'm useful. That's something." "That's not what I asked." Eliza stopped walking. "Why does it matter?" "Because you deserve better than this. You don't even know me. I know you're brilliant and kind and working yourself to exhaustion for people who aren't your responsibility. I know you're married to a man who can't see what he has. And I know—" He stopped himself. "Know what?" Marcus looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her heart stutter. "I know that if you were mine, I'd never let you feel alone." The words hung in the frozen air. Eliza's breath caught. "Marcus, forgive me. That was inappropriate." He stepped back, looking genuinely chagrined. "I should go." "No, it's fine." But it wasn't fine, because for the first time in months, someone had looked at her with warmth, with want, with something that felt dangerously close to affection, and she'd liked it. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the conversation, the way Marcus had looked at her, the terrible, treacherous part of her that had responded. She wasn't in love with him. She barely knew him, but he'd reminded her what it felt like to be seen. And that was its own kind of danger. She got out of bed, wrapped herself in a shawl, and wandered downstairs. The house was quiet, just the tick of clocks and creak of old wood settling. She found herself outside Rowan's study. The door was cracked open. Light spilled through. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. She pushed it open anyway. Rowan sat at his desk, head in his hands, a half-empty bottle of whiskey beside him. He looked up sharply as she entered. "What do you want?" Not a greeting. An accusation. "I wanted to talk." "About what?" "About this. Us. This mockery we're calling a marriage." His jaw tightened. "It's late, Eliza." "It's always late. Or early or inconvenient. There's never a good time for you, is there?" "I have work." "You're drinking alone in the dark. That's not work." Rowan stood abruptly, the chair scraping back. "What do you want from me?" "Anything." The word came out louder than she intended. "Anger, conversation, acknowledgement that I exist. I don't care, just something other than this endless silence." "I gave you the estate. I gave you freedom to do as you please. What more? I want you to talk to me like I'm your wife, not your employee. You are not my wife." The words hit like a slap. Eliza froze. "What?" Rowan's face had gone pale. "You're a contract, an arrangement. You were never supposed to be—" He stopped, shaking his head. "This was a mistake." "Which part? The marriage or this conversation?" "All of it." Something inside her cracked. "Then why keep me here? Why not just annul it and let me go?" "Because I made a commitment." "To what? A piece of paper?" "To your father. To my duty. To—" He stopped again, breathing hard. "To what, Rowan?" His eyes met hers, and for a second, just a second, she saw it again. That crack. That fear. "To keeping you safe," he said quietly. "Safe from what?" "From me." The confession hung between them. Eliza stepped closer. "I'm not afraid of you. You should be." "Why?" "Because everyone I've ever—" His voice broke. "Everyone I care about ends up broken. My brother, my father, this estate. I destroy things, Eliza. It's what I do." "That's not true." "Isn't it? Look around. Look at what I've let happen here. And look at what I've helped fix, with your approval. You did that in spite of me, not because of me. That's not—" I'm not a good man, Rowan said, his voice raw. I'm not kind or warm or any of the things you deserve. I'm broken in ways you can't fix. And the kindest thing I can do is keep my distance. Eliza's eyes burned. That's the most cowardly thing I've ever heard. He flinched like she'd struck him. You want to protect me? She continued, her voice shaking. Then stop hiding. Stop using your guilt as an excuse to push everyone away. Because you're not protecting me, Rowan. You're suffocating me. Then leave. The words were barely a whisper. What? If I'm suffocating you, leave. I won't stop you. Eliza stared at him, searching for any sign that he didn't mean it. She found none. Fine, she said, her voice cracking. Maybe I will. She turned and walked out, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Behind her, she heard the crash of glass against a wall. She didn't look back. The next morning, Marcus found her in the garden, eyes red, hands shaking as she pretended to inspect rose bushes that wouldn't bloom for months. Eliza, she looked up. Marcus, I didn't hear you. Are you all right? You look... I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. A laugh escaped her, wet and broken. Apparently. He hesitated, then said carefully, I'm leaving today, heading back to London. But before I go, I wanted to ask you something. What? Come with me. Her head snapped up. What? Not like that, he said quickly. I have a sister in London, wonderful woman. Runs a boarding house for ladies of quality who've found themselves in difficult circumstances. You could stay there. Figure out your next steps, away from all this. Marcus, I can't just... Why not? What's keeping you here? A man who won't even look at you? Duty to an estate that's not your responsibility? The tenants will survive. They did before you came. They'll manage after. He stepped closer. Eliza, you're drowning here. I can see it. Let me throw you a rope. It was tempting. So dangerously tempting. A life in London. Freedom. The chance to be herself without the weight of this place crushing her. But I need to think about it, she said. Of course. I'm leaving at noon. If you change your mind... He pressed a card into her hand. My sister's address. You'd be welcome. Anytime. He left her standing there, the card burning in her palm like a promise, or a betrayal. She didn't know which. At 11:30, she stood in her room, staring at the small bag she'd packed. Just the essentials. Enough to start over. She could do this. She could walk away from a marriage that was killing her slowly. She could choose herself. Annie knocked softly. Your Grace, Mr. Aldridge is asking if you'll be joining him. I don't know. Annie looked at the bag. Her face fell. You're leaving. I don't know, Eliza repeated. Should I? That's not for me to say, Your Grace. Annie, please, I need someone to tell me what to do. The young woman bit her lip. Do you love him? The Duke? Did she? She'd spent 3 months trying to reach him, 3 months working herself to exhaustion, partly for the estate, but partly, she could admit it now, to prove herself to him, to make him see her. Was that love? Or just desperation? I don't know, she whispered. But I know staying is destroying me. Annie nodded slowly. Then maybe you have your answer. Eliza picked up the bag. She made it as far as the main staircase before she saw him. Rowan stood at the bottom, still in yesterday's clothes, looking like he hadn't slept. Their eyes met. You're leaving, he said. Not a question. I think it's best. Something flickered across his face. Where will you go? London. Marcus has arranged... Marcus. His voice went cold. Of course. It's not like that. Isn't it? He's offering me help, Rowan, which is more than you've ever done. I've given you everything. Everything except yourself, her voice broke. You've given me money and freedom and a title. But you won't give me one honest conversation. You won't let me in. You won't even try. I told you why. You told me you're broken. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. Rowan's hands clenched at his sides. What do you want from me, Eliza? What could I possibly give you that would be enough? I want you to fight for this. For us. I want you to stop acting like caring about me would be a crime. It would be. Why? Because I can't protect you if I... He stopped, jaw working. If you what? If I let myself feel anything. The confession hung in the air, raw and painful. Eliza set down her bag. You already feel something. That's why you're so scared. I'm not. You are. You're terrified that if you let yourself care about me, I'll end up like your brother, like everyone else you think you've failed. Rowan's face went white. Don't. But I'm not them, Rowan. I'm here. I'm alive. And I'm choosing to leave because staying with someone who won't let me love them is worse than being alone. Eliza, tell me not to go. The words came out barely above a whisper. Tell me you want me to stay, that you'll try, that I matter more than your fear. She stepped closer. Tell me, Rowan, please. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at her with eyes full of something that might have been anguish, and said nothing. Eliza's heart cracked clean through. That's what I thought, she said quietly. She picked up her bag and walked past him, down the stairs, toward the door where Marcus was waiting with the carriage. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Because if she did, she'd see the thing she'd been desperate to find, proof that he cared, and watching him let her go anyway would kill her. The carriage door opened. Marcus helped her inside. Are you certain? He asked gently. No, but I'm doing it anyway. The carriage started to move. Through the window she caught one last glimpse of the estate, the fields she'd helped revive, the cottages she'd repaired, the life she'd tried so hard to build. And standing in the doorway, barely visible, a figure in dark clothes, watching her leave, not moving, not calling out, just watching. Eliza closed her eyes and let the tears come. The carriage rolled on. She'd made it maybe 3 miles when she heard the sound, hoofbeats fast and getting closer. Marcus leaned out the window. What in the... A horse pulled alongside them. On it, wild-eyed and breathing hard, was Rowan. Stop the carriage, he commanded. The driver obeyed. Rowan dismounted before the wheels had fully stopped, yanking open the door. Get out, he said. Eliza stared at him. Excuse me? Get out. Rowan, what are you... He reached in and pulled her out himself, not roughly, but with an urgency that stole her breath. Marcus jumped down. Blackmore, what the hell? Stay out of this, Aldridge. The lady made her choice. The lady, Rowan said, his voice dangerous, is my wife. He turned to Eliza, still holding her arms, breathing hard. I'm a coward, he said. You were right. I've been hiding behind my guilt for years because it's easier than risking anything real. Easier than admitting that I'm terrified of losing someone else. He stopped, swallowed hard. Someone else I care about. Eliza's heart hammered. Rowan, I can't promise I'll be good at this. I can't promise I won't mess it up. But I'm asking you, begging you, don't get in that carriage. Don't leave me. His voice cracked. Please. You let me walk away. I know. You said nothing. I know. Why should I believe this is real? Because, he said, his hands trembling against her arms, for the first time in 8 years, I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of letting myself feel something. The world seemed to stop. Eliza looked at him, really looked at him, and saw all the fear, all the desperation, all the fragile, terrifying hope. Say it, she whispered. Say what you're afraid to say. He closed his eyes. I care about you, more than I should, more than is safe. That's not good enough. His eyes opened. What? I don't want safe, Rowan. I want real. She stepped closer. So say it. Actually say it. A long, awful pause. Then, barely audible, I'm falling in love with you. The words hit her like lightning. And it terrifies me, he continued, his voice raw, because everyone I've ever loved has... She kissed him. It wasn't gentle, wasn't romantic. It was desperate and messy and tasted like tears. But it was real. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Rowan pressed his forehead to hers. "Come home," he whispered. "Please come home." Eliza pulled back just enough to see his face. On one condition. Anything. No more hiding, no more silence. If this is going to work, you have to let me in. All the way. He nodded. "I'll try." "That's all I'm asking." Behind them, Marcus cleared his throat. "Well, this is awkward." Eliza turned, suddenly remembering they had an audience. "Marcus, I'm sorry." He held up a hand, smiling ruefully. "Don't be. I knew it was a long shot." He looked at Rowan. "Take care of her, Blackmore, or I will come back." Rowan's arm tightened around Eliza's waist. "Understood." Marcus climbed back into the carriage. As it pulled away, he called out, "Good luck, Duchess. You're going to need it with this one." Then they were alone on the empty road, snow starting to fall around them. "Can you ride?" Rowan asked. "Not well." "Hold on to me then." He helped her onto his horse, then mounted behind her. His arms came around her, solid and warm, as they started back toward the estate. Eliza leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat against her back. "This doesn't fix everything," she said quietly. "I know. You've hurt me. A lot. I know. And I'll spend however long it takes making up for it. You're still terrible at talking about your feelings." "Working on it." She smiled despite herself. "This is insane. Probably. We might still fail. We might." His arms tightened, "But we'll fail together." It wasn't poetry, wasn't a fairy tale, but somehow it was enough. They rode home through the falling snow, and for the first time since she'd arrived at the Blackmore estate, Eliza felt something that wasn't loneliness or desperation or grinding determination. She felt hope, fragile, terrifying, real, and worth fighting for. Hope, as it turned out, was a fragile thing. The first week after Eliza came back, Rowan tried. He really did. He showed up for meals without being summoned, asked about her day, sat with her in the library some evenings, the silence between them less hostile, more uncertain. But trying wasn't the same as succeeding. "Tell me about Edmund," she said one night. Rowan's hand froze on his glass. "Why?" "Because he's part of why you are the way you are. And you promised, no more hiding." He set the glass down carefully. "What do you want to know?" "What was he like?" A long pause. "Better than me. At everything. Smarter, braver, more charming. Father loved him." His voice went flat. "Everyone did." "Did you?" "Of course I did. He was my brother." "But?" Rowan's jaw worked. "But I also hated how easy everything was for him, how he never had to fight to be seen. And then he died, and I got everything he was supposed to have, and I—" He stopped, breathing hard. "You felt guilty for being alive. I felt guilty for being relieved." The confession came out strangled. For one moment, when they told me he was gone, I thought, now I matter. And then I hated myself for thinking it. Eliza reached for his hand. He let her take it, but his fingers stayed rigid. "Rowan, that's— Don't. Don't tell me it's normal or understandable. I know what I am. You're human." He pulled his hand away. "I need to check the stables." "It's midnight." "Then I need to check them in the dark." And he was gone. Eliza sat alone, staring at the cold fireplace, and felt the fragile hope crack just a little. He was trying, but trying meant opening wounds he'd spent years sealing shut, and every time he got close to real vulnerability, he retreated. She couldn't blame him, but she also couldn't live like this, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, always waiting for him to bolt. The second week, she got sick. It started small, a cough, some fatigue. She ignored it, kept working. There was too much to do, and spring planting was approaching. The tenants needed her. "Your Grace, you look terrible," Clara said bluntly when Eliza showed up to inspect the seed inventory. "I'm fine." "You're pale as milk and shaking. Get yourself to bed." "I will, after this." But after this became after that, and by the time she admitted something was wrong, the fever had set in. She made it back to the manor on sheer stubbornness, collapsed in the entrance hall, and woke up in her bed with no memory of getting there. Annie was dabbing her forehead with a cool cloth. "How long?" Eliza croaked. "2 days, Your Grace. You gave us a fright." "Rowan, the Duke's been—" Annie hesitated. "He's been very concerned." "Where is he?" "I don't know. He comes and goes, won't talk to anyone." Of course he wouldn't. Eliza drifted in and out for the next few days. Fever dreams mixed with reality. She saw her mother, long dead, telling her to fight. Saw Rowan standing in the doorway, watching. Saw shadows that might have been memories, or might have been nothing at all. When the fever finally broke, she woke to find Graves sitting in a chair by the window, reading. "Graves?" He looked up, relief flooding his face. "Your Grace, thank heavens. What are you doing here?" "His Grace asked me to stay with you, said someone should be here when you woke." "But not him." Graves' expression tightened. "He's been here. Every night. Sits in that chair until dawn, then leaves before you wake." Eliza's chest ached. "Why won't he stay?" "I think, Your Grace, he's afraid of what he might say if he does." She was still weak when she finally dragged herself out of bed a week later. The mirror showed a stranger, hollow-eyed, too thin, skin like paper, but alive. She found Rowan in his study, surrounded by ledgers he clearly wasn't reading. He looked up when she entered, and something raw crossed his face. "You should be resting." "I've been resting for a week." "The doctor said—" "I don't care what the doctor said. We need to talk." Rowan stood abruptly. "Eliza, you nearly died. I know, I was there. This isn't a joke." "I'm not joking." Her voice came out sharper than intended. "I'm trying to understand why you can't just— why you sat with me every night but couldn't stay when I was awake. Because seeing you like that—" His voice broke. "You don't understand what it was like. Watching you burn up with fever, not knowing if you'd wake up, if I'd lose you the same way I lost Edmund. Everyone." The word came out like a confession. "Everyone I've ever let myself care about ends up gone. My mother died in childbirth. Edmund died because I made the wrong call in battle. My father died hating me, and now you. I'm fine. This time. But what about next time? What about the time after that?" He was pacing now, hands raking through his hair. "I can't watch you die, Eliza. I can't go through that again." "So what's the alternative? You push me away now so it hurts less later?" "Yes." The honesty of it stole her breath. "That's not love, Rowan. That's cowardice." His face went hard. "I never said I was brave." "You rode after me. You stopped me from leaving. You said—" Her voice cracked. "You said you were falling in love with me." "I am. That's the problem." "How is that a problem?" "Because love makes you vulnerable. And I can't. I won't." "You won't what? Risk anything? Feel anything?" She stepped closer. "You're so busy protecting yourself from future pain that you're missing what's right in front of you. What's in front of me is a woman I'm going to lose eventually, one way or another. We're all going to lose each other eventually, Rowan. That's not a reason to not try." "It is for me." The words hung in the air, brutal and final. Eliza felt something inside her harden. "Then I don't know what we're doing here." "Neither do I." She waited for him to take it back, to say he didn't mean it. He didn't. "I'm going to visit the tenants," she said quietly. "Don't wait up." She left before he could respond. Outside, the late February air was cold enough to hurt. She welcomed it. Anything was better than the suffocating weight of that conversation. She walked without direction, ending up at Clara's cottage by muscle memory. Clara took one look at her face and pulled her inside. "What happened?" "I don't know if I can do this," Eliza said, her voice breaking. I thought if I just worked hard enough, cared enough, gave enough, but it's not enough. It's never enough." "Oh, honey." Clara wrapped her in a fierce hug. "You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved." "But he does want to. He's just scared. I know. But that's his battle, not yours." "Then what do I do?" Clara pulled back, her weathered face serious. "You decide if you can live with half of him, because that might be all he's capable of giving." Could she? She'd come here expecting nothing and found purpose, found community. found a version of herself she actually respected. But she'd also found a man who made her feel more alive and more lonely than she'd ever been, sometimes in the same breath. Was that enough? She didn't know. She stayed at Clara's that night, helped with the children the next day, threw herself into work with a desperation that bordered on manic. Anything to not think about the mess waiting for her back at the manor. It was Thomas who brought the news. "Your Grace, there's a man here to see you. Says he knows you from before." Her stomach dropped. "What's his name?" "Aldridge. Marcus Aldridge." Marcus was waiting in the barn, looking uncomfortable and determined in equal measure. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Checking on you. Your last letter sounded strained." She'd written him once, weeks ago, thanking him for his kindness. She'd mentioned that things with Rowan were complicated. Apparently she'd said more than she realized. "I'm managing," she said. "Are you?" He stepped closer, his eyes searching her face. "Eliza, you look exhausted, and you've lost weight. When I left, you were thriving. Now you look like someone fighting a losing battle. I wasn't going to say it, but yes." She laughed bitterly. "That's because I am." "Then stop fighting." "It's not that simple." "It is, though. You could leave tomorrow. Come to London. My sister still has room. You could have a life that doesn't involve Marcus, stop." But he kept going, his voice gentle and earnest, and everything Rowan's wasn't. "You deserve someone who sees you, who appreciates everything you are, who doesn't make you beg for scraps of affection." "He's not, isn't he?" Marcus caught her hand. "Eliza, I know I have no right. I know this is insane, but watching you settle for someone who can't love you the way you deserve is killing me. You don't know him. I know he's had months to make you happy, and he's failed. I know you're the most remarkable woman I've ever met, and you're wasting yourself on a man who's too broken to see it. Don't talk about him like that." "Why not? It's true." "Because he's my husband, and for all his faults, he's trying. Trying isn't enough, not when you're drowning." He was too close now, his hand still holding hers, his eyes too intense. "Marcus, I can't." "You can. Just say the word. I'll have you out of here tonight. Give you the life you should have had." For a moment, just a moment, she was tempted. Because Marcus was right about one thing, she was drowning, and Rowan's half attempts at vulnerability weren't the rope she needed. "But I can't," she said quietly, pulling her hand away. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't." "Why not?" "Because I love him." The words came out before she could stop them, and once they were out, she realized they were true. She loved Rowan. Impossible, frustrating, broken Rowan. Loved him despite everything, maybe because of everything. And that was the problem, because loving someone who couldn't love you back, really love you, openly and without fear, was its own kind of torture. Marcus's face fell. "Eliza, you should go." "Does he know that you love him?" "I don't know. Probably not." "Then tell him. Make him choose, because this," he gestured around, "this half-life you're living isn't fair to either of you." He left her standing there, his words echoing in the cold barn. Make him choose. But what if he chose wrong? She walked back to the manor in a daze, barely registering the cold or the fading light. Rowan was waiting in the entrance hall, pacing like a caged animal. He looked up when she entered, relief and anger warring on his face. "Where the hell have you been? Out? For 2 days?" "I needed space." "You could have told someone, like you tell me where you are every time you disappear." The words came out sharp. "I'm fine, Rowan. I was with the tenants." He stepped closer, his eyes searching her face. Then he froze. "You saw him." "What?" "Aldridge. He was here. I saw his horse." Eliza's stomach sank. "Rowan, did he touch you?" "That's not did. He touch you." "He held my hand, that's all." Rowan's face went white. "That's all. Nothing happened." "But something could have." "It didn't." "Because you chose not to, or because you weren't tempted?" The question hit like a fist. Eliza stared at him, seeing the fear naked in his eyes, and felt something inside her snap. "You don't get to do this," she said, her voice shaking. "You don't get to push me away for months, tell me you're too broken to love me properly, and then get jealous when someone else shows me basic human warmth." He wants more than warmth. So do I. I want a husband who can look at me without flinching, who can say he loves me without it sounding like a confession, who doesn't treat every moment of happiness like it's a sin. She was crying now, hot, angry tears. "I want you, Rowan, the real you, not this terrified shell. I'm trying. Trying isn't enough anymore. I need you to actually do it, to let me in, all the way, or we're done." "You don't mean that, don't I?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "I almost left with Marcus today. He offered me a life in London, freedom, a fresh start." Rowan went very still. "Why didn't you?" "Because I love you, you impossible man. But love isn't enough if you won't meet me halfway." "Eliza, so choose." The words came out raw. "Choose me, actually choose me, or let me go." He stared at her, something breaking in his eyes. "I don't know if I can give you what you need." "Then we have nothing left to say." She turned to leave. His voice stopped her. "Wait." She looked back. Rowan stood there, hands clenched, breathing hard, looking like every word was being dragged out of him by force. "When you were sick," he said quietly, "I sat with you every night. I held your hand while you burned with fever. I prayed to things I don't believe in. And when you finally opened your eyes, I ran because I couldn't—" His voice broke. "I couldn't let you see how terrified I was, how much it would destroy me if you died." "Rowan, Edmund died because I made a tactical error. I sent him into an ambush. He trusted me, and I got him killed. My father never forgave me. I never forgave myself." He was shaking now. "And I thought, if I kept everyone at a distance, I couldn't fail them, couldn't lose them. But you're losing me anyway. I know." He crossed the space between them. "I know, and it's killing me, and I still don't know how to—" He stopped, his hand hovering near her face like he was afraid to touch her. Eliza caught his hand, pressed it to her cheek. "Just try," she whispered. "That's all I'm asking. Really try." "What if I fail again?" "Then we fail together." For a long moment, they stood there, her hand covering his eyes searching hers. Then he kissed her. It was different from the desperate kiss on the road. This was slower, deeper, weighted with everything they hadn't said. When they broke apart, Rowan pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you," he said, the words rough and unpracticed. "I don't know how to do this, but I love you." That's a start. They stood there in the entrance hall, holding each other like survivors of a shipwreck, and for the first time in weeks, Eliza felt like maybe, just maybe, they'd found solid ground. But solid ground, she was about to learn, could shift without warning. The illness came back 3 days later. Eliza woke with the same cough, the same exhaustion. Worse this time. "It's just a relapse," she told Annie. "I'll rest." But by nightfall, the fever was back, higher than before. Her body ached like something was breaking inside. The doctor came, frowned, gave her medicine that didn't work. "What's wrong with her?" Rowan demanded. "I'm not certain, Your Grace. The fever should have broken by now. Then make it break. I'm doing everything I can." A week passed. Then 2. Eliza drifted in and out of consciousness, her world narrowing to fever and pain and brief moments of clarity where she'd find Rowan sitting beside her, holding her hand, his face hollowed out with fear. "You have to fight," he whispered once. "Please, Eliza, don't leave me." She wanted to tell him she was trying, wanted to reassure him, but the words wouldn't come. The 3rd week, she heard the doctor talking to Graves in hushed tones outside her door. "Seen this before. Without proper treatment." "What treatment?" "There's a specialist in London, but the journey in her condition, would it save her?" "It might, but Your Grace, moving her now could kill her." "And leaving her here?" A pause. "Will almost certainly kill her." Eliza's eyes drifted closed. So this is how it ends, she thought distantly. not with dramatic choices or grand gestures, just a fever that won't break. She felt oddly peaceful about it, until she heard Rowan's voice, sharp and decisive. "Prepare the carriage. We leave at dawn." "Your Grace, the risk. I don't care. I'm not letting her die because I was too afraid to act." Something in his tone cut through the fog. Eliza forced her eyes open. "Rowan?" He was beside her in an instant. "I'm here." "London?" "We're getting you help, real help. Too dangerous. I don't care. You'll blame yourself if... I'll blame myself if I do nothing and lose you anyway." His hand tightened on hers. "This is my choice, Eliza. Let me make it." She didn't have the strength to argue. The journey was a nightmare. Every jolt of the carriage sent pain spiking through her. Rowan held her the entire time, keeping her upright, whispering things she couldn't quite hear. They made it to London in 2 days that felt like years. The specialist, a stern woman named Dr. Winters, took one look at Eliza and started barking orders. "Pneumonia. Advanced." "Why didn't you bring her sooner?" "We thought..." "I don't care what you thought. Get her inside. Now." The next days were a blur of medicine and pain and slowly, agonizingly slowly, improvement. When Eliza finally woke with a clear head, sunlight was streaming through unfamiliar windows. Rowan was asleep in a chair beside the bed, his hand still holding hers, dark circles under his eyes. She squeezed his hand gently. He woke instantly. "Eliza?" "Hi." His face crumpled. "You're awake. You're actually... I'm okay." He pressed her hand to his face, his shoulders shaking. "I thought I'd lost you. I thought... You didn't. I should have brought you here sooner. Should have realized... Rowan, stop." She tugged weakly at his hand until he looked at her. "You saved my life. I almost got you killed. You made a choice, a hard one, and it worked." He laughed wetly. "Barely. But it did." Dr. Winters appeared in the doorway. "Ah, you're awake. Good. Your husband has been insufferable. I can imagine. You'll need another week of rest, but you should make a full recovery." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you." After the doctor left, Rowan pulled his chair closer. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "About everything. I thought keeping my distance would protect you, protect me. But all it did was waste time we could have spent..." He stopped, swallowing hard. "I nearly lost you twice. And I realized that the pain of losing you isn't something I can avoid by not loving you. It's already there. Because I already love you. Rowan, I'm not good at this. At being vulnerable. At letting people in. But I want to try. Really try. Not halfway. Not when I'm cornered. All the time." Tears slid down Eliza's cheeks. "That's all I wanted." "I know. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure it out." She pulled him closer, ignoring the ache in her body. "We have time now." "Do we?" "We'd better. I didn't survive pneumonia just to let you spiral again." He laughed, the sound rusty but real. "Fair enough." They sat in the quiet London morning, holding each other, and Eliza felt something settle in her chest. This wasn't the end of their problems. Rowan was still haunted. She was still recovering. They had months, maybe years, of learning how to be together properly. But they had time. And they had each other. It would have to be enough. It was late afternoon when Annie arrived with news from the estate. "Your Grace, there's been..." She stopped, looking between them uncertainly. "What is it?" Rowan asked. "The manor. There was a fire." Eliza's heart stopped. "What?" 3 nights ago. Started in the West Wing. They managed to contain it, but..." Annie's voice broke. "But a lot was destroyed." Rowan went pale. "Casualties?" "None, thank heaven. But the damage, how bad?" "Half the West Wing is gone. Your study, the library, several bedrooms. The structure's unstable." Rowan stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. "I need to go back. You can't leave Eliza." "I'm fine," Eliza said, even though moving still hurt. "We'll both go." "Eliza, you barely survived the trip here, and I'll survive the trip back." She caught his hand. "We're in this together, remember? That means all of it." Dr. Winters was against it. Annie was horrified. Even Graves, who'd arrived with the news, looked doubtful. But Eliza had spent months fighting for the estate. She wasn't about to abandon it now. They left the next morning, moving slowly, stopping frequently. It took 4 days instead of 2. When they finally crested the hill and saw the manor, Eliza's breath caught. The west wing was a blackened shell, windows blown out, roof caved in, walls scorched and crumbling. It looked like a dying thing. Rowan stared at it, his face unreadable. "I did this," he said quietly. "What?" "I left a candle burning in my study. The night we fought. I was angry and drunk and careless, and I—" His voice cracked. "This is my fault. It was an accident. That doesn't make it better." He turned to her, his eyes haunted. "Don't you see? This is what I do. I destroy things, no matter how hard I try. Rowan, stop. You almost died because I didn't get you help fast enough. The manor's burning because I was careless. Edmund's dead because war is hell and people die in it. I got sick because illness happens. The manor burned because accidents happen." She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "You are not responsible for every bad thing that happens. You're just a man, a flawed, scared, trying man. That's not enough. It is for me." He stared at her, something breaking and reforming in his eyes. Then he pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, and she felt him shake with silent sobs. "I don't know how to fix this," he whispered. "We'll figure it out together." They stood there in front of the ruined manor, holding each other, and Eliza realized something crucial. This, right here, this was the breaking point, not the illness, not the fire. This moment where Rowan finally let himself fall apart in her arms, where he stopped trying to be invincible and let himself be human. It was terrifying, and it was exactly what they needed. Behind them, Graves cleared his throat. "Your Graces, we should assess the damage before nightfall." Rowan pulled back, wiping his eyes roughly. "Right, yes." He started toward the manor, then stopped and looked back at Eliza, held out his hand. She took it, and together they walked toward the wreckage. The damage was worse up close. They picked their way through the rubble, Graves leading with a lantern even though it was barely dusk. Half the west wing's roof had collapsed into the second floor, taking chunks of wall with it. The smell of smoke still clung to everything. "Your study is completely gone, Your Grace," Graves said, his voice carefully neutral. "As is the library. The adjacent bedrooms are structurally unsound." Rowan said nothing, just kept walking, his hand tight around Eliza's. They found what was left of his study. The desk was a charred skeleton, papers reduced to ash. The chair where he'd spent countless nights drinking alone was nothing but twisted metal and blackened wood. "All those records," Eliza said quietly. "The ledgers, the contracts." "I have copies in the estate office," Graves said. The Duke was always meticulous about documentation. "Was I?" Rowan's laugh was bitter. "Meticulous enough to let a candle burn down the place? Your Grace, how many others know it was my fault?" Graves hesitated. "The servants suspect, but they've said nothing." "They will eventually." "Perhaps. But right now, they're more concerned with whether you'll rebuild." Rowan turned to him sharply. "What?" "The tenants have been asking whether you plan to repair the manor or—" Graves paused. "Or abandon it entirely." "Why would I abandon it?" "Because, Your Grace, you've run from everything else." The words hung in the smoky air like an accusation. Eliza watched Rowan's face, waiting for the retreat, the shutdown, the practiced indifference. Instead, he said, "Not this time." Graves' eyebrows rose. "Your Grace? I'm not running, not from this, not anymore." Rowan looked at Eliza, something fierce in his eyes. "We rebuild. All of it. That will take significant resources. Then we find them. And time, months at least, possibly a year. I don't care how long it takes." Rowan's voice was steady, certain in a way Eliza had never heard. "This is my home. Our home. And I'm done letting fear dictate what I do with it." Eliza felt something loosen in her chest. "You mean that?" Every word. She smiled, exhausted but real. "Then we'd better figure out where to start." The next morning, they called a meeting with the estate's key people: Graves, the foreman, Clara representing the tenants, and Annie coordinating household staff. They gathered in the dining room, the only large space still fully intact. "Right," Eliza said, spreading a hastily drawn map of the manor across the table. "The west wing is a loss, but the rest of the structure is sound. We stabilize what's standing, then rebuild from there." "The cost will be substantial," the foreman said, a grizzled man named Hewitt. "Materials alone. How substantial?" He named a figure that made everyone wince. "We don't have that," Rowan said flatly. "Then we get creative," Eliza said. She'd been up most of the night thinking about this. "We can't replace everything at once, so we prioritize. What does the manor actually need to function?" "Housing for the Duke and Duchess," Graves said. "We can use the east wing temporarily. What else?" "Working kitchen, staff quarters, receiving rooms for estate business. Those are all in the undamaged sections. So, really, what we're rebuilding is the heart of the house," Rowan said quietly. "The study, the library, the formal rooms." "Do we need formal rooms?" Everyone stared at her. "Your Grace," Graves said carefully, "a ducal manor requires certain requirements that have kept this place bleeding money for years." She looked around the table. "No one's entertained here in a decade. The formal rooms have been shut up since before I arrived. Why rebuild something we're not using?" "Because it's tradition," Hewitt said. "Tradition doesn't keep roofs from leaking." She pointed to the map. "What if we rebuild the West Wing differently? Smaller formal spaces, yes, but also practical ones. A proper estate office instead of a study. A community library the tenants can actually use. Meeting rooms for—" "You want to turn the manor into a public space?" Rowan's tone was unreadable. Eliza met his eyes. "I want to turn it into something useful. Something that serves the estate, not just displays wealth we don't have." A long pause. Then Rowan smiled, small but genuine. "Do it." "Your Grace, this is highly irregular," Graves started. "I don't care. She's right. We've been maintaining a monument to my father's ego. Time to build something that actually matters." Clara spoke up for the first time. "If you're serious about a community library, we could help. Most of us can read a bit, but books are scarce. And if there's meeting space, we could use it for cooperative planning, shared equipment storage." "Exactly," Eliza said, energized now. "And in return, the tenants help with the rebuild. Not just labor, though we'll need that, but expertise. Hewitt, you've built half the cottages on this estate. You know more about construction than any architect we could hire." Hewitt scratched his beard. "I suppose I do. And we don't try to do it all at once. We phase it. Essential repairs first, stabilize the structure, make it safe, then rebuild in stages as we can afford it." "How long are we talking?" Rowan asked. "A year? Maybe more." "And we live here during construction?" "We make it work." He looked at her, something like admiration in his eyes. "When did you become an architect?" "When I married a man too stubborn to hire one." The room laughed. Actual, genuine laughter. It felt like a small miracle. Over the next weeks, something shifted. The rebuild became a communal project. Tenants showed up with tools and ideas. Annie organized the household staff into rotating teams to keep the livable sections functional. Even Thomas, the laborer who'd once tried to fight Rowan, came back, sheepish but willing. "Heard you were rebuilding differently," he said. "Figured you could use the help." Rowan, to his credit, just nodded and put him to work. The changes were visible, not just in the manor, though watching the blackened West Wing slowly transform into something new was satisfying, but in Rowan himself. He was present now, really present, working alongside the laborers, learning their names, asking their opinions. He still wasn't chatty, probably never would be, but the wall he'd built between himself and everyone else was crumbling. "You're different," Eliza told him one evening as they surveyed the day's progress. "Different how?" "Lighter, like you've put down something heavy." He considered this. "I have, I think. The idea that I had to be perfect, that one mistake meant I was irredeemable." He looked at the charred walls. "The fire should have destroyed me. confirmed every terrible thing I believed about myself. But it didn't. No, because you didn't let it. You just... He gestured helplessly. You just started solving problems. Like the fact that I'd burned down half the manor was just another item on your list. It kind of was. Most people would have left. I'm not most people. No, he said softly. You're not. He kissed her then, gentle and deliberate, and Eliza felt the last of her walls crumble too. They were going to be okay. Not perfect. Not easy, but okay. The first real test came in April. A representative from the Duke's bank arrived, a thin, nervous man named Pemberton, who kept adjusting his spectacles and consulting his ledgers. Your Grace, I'm here to discuss your outstanding loans. Rowan's jaw tightened. I'm aware of my debts. Yes, well, given the recent incident, the bank is concerned about your ability to repay. The estate is solvent, barely, and with the cost of rebuilding, we're managing it. Are you? Pemberton spread his papers. Your operating costs have increased significantly. The rebuild is expensive, and while I understand the Duchess has implemented certain efficiencies, the numbers show what? Eliza cut in. Pemberton blinked at her. I beg your pardon? The numbers, what do they show? That you're spending more than you're bringing in. In the short term, yes, but long-term projections are speculative at best. He pushed the ledgers toward them. The bank requires assurance, collateral, or a significant payment to demonstrate good faith. How significant? Rowan asked. The number Pemberton named made Eliza's stomach drop. That's half our operating budget for the year, she said. I'm aware, but the bank's position is clear. Either provide assurance or they'll call in the full loan. Which would bankrupt us. Yes. After Pemberton left, Rowan sat at the dining table with his head in his hands. We're ruined. We're not. Eliza, we don't have that kind of money, not without gutting the estate's operations, and if we do that, then we find another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. She pulled the ledgers toward her, studying the numbers. What if we don't pay them? They'll seize the estate. What if we pay them something else? Rowan looked up. Like what? Equity. In the estate? In its future. She was thinking out loud now, the pieces clicking together. We're rebuilding, making improvements that will increase the property value long term. What if we offer the bank a stake in that increase? Partial ownership in the improved estate in exchange for debt forgiveness. No bank would agree to that. Why not? Right now they're holding a loan on a half-burned manor with uncertain prospects. But if they're invested in the rebuild, if they profit when we succeed, it's in their interest to support us. That's insane. That's business. She looked at him. Do you trust me? Rowan didn't hesitate. Yes. Then let me try. The meeting with the bank directors was brutal. 3 severe men in expensive suits, sitting across from Eliza and Rowan in a London office that smelled of leather and old money. You want us to forgive your debt, the senior director said, in exchange for a speculative future return. I want you to invest in success rather than betting on failure, Eliza said calmly. Right now, you're holding paper worth less every day the estate struggles. But if you convert that debt to equity, say 10% of the estate's increased value over the next 5 years, you stand to make significantly more than the original loan. Or we lose everything if you fail. True. But you'll lose it anyway if you call the loan now. We can't pay. You know that. Seizure means a fire sale, and you'll recover maybe 60%. This way, you have a chance at 120%. The directors exchanged glances. The Duchess makes an interesting point, the junior director said. The Duchess is gambling with our money, the senior director countered. With all due respect, Rowan said quietly, she's gambling with our future. You're just along for the ride. Something shifted in the room. The senior director leaned back, studying them both. You're serious about this rebuild? Completely. And you believe the estate can not only survive but increase in value? I know it can, Eliza said. We've already improved tenant productivity by 30%, reduced waste by 20%. The numbers are in the reports we submitted. Numbers can be manipulated. Then come see for yourself. Visit the estate. Talk to the tenants. See what we're building. She held his gaze. We're not asking for charity. We're offering partnership. A long, excruciating pause. Then the senior director said, We'll need to discuss this internally. Of course. Don't expect a quick answer. We'll wait. Outside, Rowan exhaled hard. That was terrifying? I was going to say brilliant. It was desperate. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. He caught her hand. Where did you learn to negotiate like that? My father, he was terrible at many things, but business wasn't one of them. She smiled weakly. Guess something had to be genetic. They got the bank's answer 2 weeks later. Approved. 10% equity stake in exchange for debt forgiveness and a 5-year partnership agreement. The estate remained in Blackmore hands, but the bank now had a vested interest in its success. They actually agreed, Rowan said, staring at the contract. They agreed because it made sense. No, they agreed because you made them believe we could pull this off. We can pull this off. How are you so sure? Eliza looked at him, this man who'd been so broken when she met him, now standing taller, steadier, ready to fight. Because you're not the same person you were 6 months ago. Neither am I. And the estate isn't the same place. She touched his face. We've already survived the worst. Everything else is just work. He kissed her forehead. Have I mentioned you're terrifying? Once or twice. Word of the bank deal spread fast, and with it, something unexpected, respect. Tenants who'd been skeptical started showing up with suggestions. Local suppliers offered better terms, wanting to be associated with the estate's comeback. Even neighboring landowners began stopping by, curious about the unconventional duchess who'd gambled with banks and won. You're making waves, Clara said one afternoon, grinning. People are talking about you, about what you're doing here. Is that good? It's necessary. Too many estates around here are dying because the lords won't adapt. You're proving there's another way. The rebuild accelerated. By late spring, the West Wing had a new roof and functioning windows. The community library was taking shape. Shelves built by Hewitt, books donated by families who'd been hoarding them for generations. It's beautiful, Annie breathed, looking at the space. And it was. Not fancy, but warm. Real. Eliza found Rowan there one evening, running his hand along the new shelves. Thinking about your old library? She asked. Thinking about how much time I wasted in it, hiding. He turned to her. This is better. Open. Useful. You could have fought me on it. Why would I? You were right. He pulled her close. You're right about most things. I'm starting to accept that. Only starting? I'm a slow learner. She laughed, and the sound echoed in the empty library, a promise of the life that would fill it. The turning point came in June. A formal dinner, the first the manor had hosted in over a decade. Rowan's idea, shockingly. We should show people what we've accomplished, he'd said. Invite the neighboring estates, the village leaders, the tenants who've helped most. That's very social of you. Don't get used to it. But you were right. We can't rebuild in isolation. We need allies. So they'd sent invitations, and to Eliza's surprise, people came, not everyone. Some of the older, more traditional families declined, but enough showed up to fill the restored dining room and spill into the garden. Lord Ashworth, who owned the neighboring estate, cornered Rowan by the wine table. Bold move, Blackmore, turning the manor into a cooperative project. Necessary move. Is it? Ashworth swirled his wine. I've heard whispers that you're catering to tenants, giving them power they shouldn't have. I'm giving them stake in the estate's success. There's a difference. Is there? What happens when they want more? When giving an inch means losing a mile? Rowan's jaw tightened, and Eliza saw the old walls trying to slam back up. She touched his arm gently. May I? He nodded, grateful. Eliza turned to Ashworth with a polite smile. Lord Ashworth, respectfully, when was the last time you spoke to your tenants? He blinked. I have a steward for that. Exactly. And how's your estate doing? It's managing. We're thriving. Because our people aren't just tenants, they're partners. They work harder because they benefit directly. They innovate because they have permission to, and they stay loyal because they're valued. She paused. You see it as giving up power. I see it as multiplying it. Ashworth stared at her. You're an unusual woman, Duchess. I'll take that as a compliment. He laughed, surprised. It was meant as one. Perhaps I've been too traditional in my thinking. Perhaps you have. After he walked away, Rowan leaned close. You just won over one of the most stubborn men in the county. I just told him the truth. Still terrifying. The dinner stretched late into the evening. People who'd come curious left impressed. Deals were discussed. Cooperative grain storage with Ashworth's estate, shared equipment purchases with two others. And through it all, Eliza watched Rowan. He wasn't hiding in a corner or disappearing to his study. He was present, engaged, even laughing at one point when Clara told an outrageous story about a runaway pig. This was the man he could be when he stopped punishing himself. This was the man she'd fought for. After the last guest left, they stood in the garden, exhausted but satisfied. We did it, Eliza said. You did it. We did it, she insisted. You trusted me, supported me, stopped running. She turned to face him. You're not the same man I married, Rowan. Is that good? It's everything. He pulled her close, and they stood there in the warm June night, listening to the sounds of their estate, the tenants heading home, the workers cleaning up, the life they'd built together humming around them. I have something to tell you, Rowan said quietly. What? I'm happy. The words were so simple, so unexpected, that Eliza felt tears prick her eyes. Say it again. I'm happy. Here, with you, doing this. I didn't think I could be, but... He laughed softly. I am. She kissed him then, deep and slow and full of everything they'd survived to get here. When they finally pulled apart, Rowan said, There's one more thing. What? He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, not expensive, not flashy. A simple gold band with a small emerald. I know we're already married, he said, but I want to do this right. Ask properly. He got down on one knee. Eliza Harrow Blackmore, will you marry me, not because of duty or debt or arrangement, but because I love you and I want to build a life with you? She was crying openly now. We're already married. I know, but this time I'm choosing it, choosing you. Then yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, lifting her off her feet in a hug that felt like a promise. Behind them, from the servants' entrance, they heard cheering, Annie, Graves, Clara, half the staff watching and applauding. Were they spying? Rowan asked. Absolutely, Eliza said, laughing. And I don't care, because this, all of this, was real. The estate was healing. Rowan was healing. She was healing. They weren't perfect. The rebuild would take months more. Money was still tight. There would be setbacks and fights and moments where everything felt impossible, but they'd already done the impossible. They'd survived. And now, finally, they were beginning to live. 3 years later, Eliza stood in the completed West Wing and barely recognized it. Gone were the oppressive formal rooms and dusty corridors. In their place, light. The community library stretched across what had been Rowan's father's ballroom, floor-to-ceiling windows letting in morning sun. Children sat cross-legged on the floor, reading. Clara helped an elderly farmer sound out words from a farming manual. It's something, isn't it? Rowan said, coming up behind her. It's everything. The estate office occupied the former drawing room. Functional, efficient, always busy. Meeting rooms doubled as classrooms where Annie taught basic literacy twice a week. Even the rebuilt personal quarters were different, smaller, warmer, designed for living rather than display. Pemberton's here, Rowan said. From the bank. Eliza turned. Already? The quarterly review isn't for another month. He said it's urgent. They found him in the office, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Your Graces, thank you for seeing me. What's wrong? Eliza asked, already running through worst-case scenarios. Wrong? Nothing's wrong, quite the opposite. He spread papers across the desk. Your estate value has increased 43% in 3 years. Productivity is up 60%. Your tenant retention is nearly 100%, unheard of in this region. Rowan frowned. And that's urgent because the bank wants to offer you a new arrangement. Full debt forgiveness in exchange for extending our equity stake another 5 years. You want to stay invested, Eliza said slowly. We want to replicate this model. You've proven it works. Radical efficiency, tenant partnership, community investment. Other estates are failing while you're thriving. The bank wants to study your methods, potentially offer similar restructuring to other struggling properties. Using us as a template. Exactly. Eliza and Rowan exchanged glances. We'll need to discuss it, Rowan said. Of course. But your graces, what you've built here is remarkable. People are noticing. After Pemberton left, they sat in silence. Well, Eliza said finally, that's unexpected. You're not surprised. You predicted this. I hoped. Didn't predict. Rowan pulled her onto his lap. Liar. You knew exactly what you were doing. I knew we'd survive. The rest was luck. No, the rest was you refusing to accept failure. She kissed him, still amazed after 3 years that she could do this freely, that he'd kiss her back without hesitation, without fear. We should celebrate, he said against her lips. How? I have ideas. I bet you do. A knock at the door interrupted them. Annie, trying not to smile. Sorry, your graces, but there's someone here to see you. Says she's from the Regional Women's Council. Who? Lady Catherine Thornwood. She's very, insistent. Lady Thornwood turned out to be a formidable woman in her 60s, sharp eyes and sharper tongue. Duchess Blackmore, I've heard remarkable things about your estate. Thank you, Lady Thornwood. Don't thank me yet. I'm not here to flatter. I'm here to recruit. She sat without invitation. I represent 12 estates in this region, all run or co-managed by women. We're forming a cooperative, shared resources, collective bargaining, mutual support. I want Blackmore to join. A women's cooperative? Rowan said, intrigued. Don't sound so surprised, Duke. Women have been running estates for centuries. We're just doing it officially now. She looked at Eliza. Your model, tenant partnership, community investment, practical efficiency over tradition, it's exactly what we're advocating. Having Blackmore as a founding member would legitimize the entire movement. What would it involve? Eliza asked. Quarterly meetings, resource sharing, equipment, expertise, labor during harvest, collective purchasing to get better prices, and political advocacy, pushing for legal reforms that benefit estates run by our methods rather than outdated feudal nonsense. That sounds revolutionary. It is. That's the point. Lady Thornwood leaned forward. The old system is dying, Duchess. Men like Ashworth can cling to tradition all they want, but it's bleeding them dry. We're building something new, something sustainable. Are you in? Eliza looked at Rowan. He nodded slightly. Your choice. We're in, she said. Lady Thornwood smiled. Good. First meeting is next month. Bring your accounting books. We're starting with a comprehensive efficiency audit across all member estates. After she left, Rowan shook his head. You just joined a revolution. We just joined a revolution. Fair point. Are you worried? About you leading 12 estates worth of women in overthrowing the traditional land management system? He pretended to consider, terrified. She laughed. Good. Keeps you on your toes. The women's cooperative transformed everything, not overnight, nothing ever did. But slowly, methodically, 12 estates began operating as one massive, efficient system. Shared threshing equipment meant lower costs. Bulk grain purchases meant better prices. When one estate had labor shortage, others sent workers. And the political advocacy, that changed things too. Within a year, they'd successfully lobbied for tenant rights legislation, protection from arbitrary eviction, standardized lease terms, access to legal arbitration for disputes. You're making enemies, Lord Ashworth warned Eliza at a regional council meeting. He'd become an unlikely ally, his own estate gradually adopting their methods. The old families don't like change. The old families are dying, she said bluntly. Their estates are failing. They can hate us all they want. We're still here. True, but hatred makes people desperate. He was more right than she knew. The attack came in autumn, 4 years after the fire. Eliza was inspecting the north fields when she heard shouting. She ran toward the sound, finding Thomas and 2 other workers restraining a man she didn't recognize. "Let me go!" "Not until you explain yourself," Thomas growled. Caught him trying to set fire to the grain storage. Eliza's blood went cold. "What?" The man spat at her feet. "Your kind are destroying everything. Women running estates, tenants with rights. It's an abomination." "My kind? You and your cooperative. Poisoning good men against tradition. Well, some of us won't stand for it." "Who sent you?" He smiled viciously. "Burn it all down. That's the message." They turned him over to the magistrate. But the message was clear. They'd made real enemies now. "We need better security," Rowan said that night, pacing their bedroom. "We need to not give in to fear." "Eliza, he tried to burn down the estate. Again. And he failed, because our people were watching, because they care." She caught his hands. "We can't lock ourselves away. That's what they want, to make us scared, isolated, weak. Then what do? We keep going. Show them we're not intimidated. That's dangerously stubborn. It's the only option we have." The Women's Cooperative met in emergency session. All 12 estates had received threats. Some subtle, some explicit. "They want us to disband," Lady Thornwood said. "Admit we were wrong and go back to being decorative. Then we double down," said Lady Margaret from Westfield Estate. "Make ourselves too visible to quietly eliminate." "How?" someone asked. Eliza spoke up. "We host a summit. Invite every estate in the region, not just members. Show them what we've accomplished. Make it too public to attack." "That's risky," Lady Catherine said. "Everything we're doing is risky." "She's right," Rowan said from the back of the room. He'd come as an observer, one of 3 men invited. Hiding makes you a target. Visibility makes you a movement. The vote was unanimous. They planned it for spring, a 3-day summit at Blackmore. Workshops on efficiency, tenant management, cooperative economics. Tours of successful estates. And most importantly, public declarations of success backed by undeniable numbers. The response was overwhelming. 73 estates confirmed attendance, including, surprisingly, some of the traditional families who'd been most hostile. "They're coming to sabotage," Annie predicted. "Let them try," Eliza said. "The numbers don't lie." The summit preparations consumed months. The manor became a hive of activity. Guest rooms prepared, presentation materials compiled, security quietly arranged with help from Rowan's old military contacts. "This is insane," Graves said one evening, surveying the organized chaos. "Probably," Eliza agreed. "What if it fails?" "Then we fail spectacularly, and at least people will remember us." "That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be." The first day of the summit, 73 estate owners and their representatives gathered in the newly expanded community hall. Eliza stood at the front, notes trembling slightly in her hands. Rowan sat in the front row, giving her an encouraging nod. "Thank you for coming," she began. "I know many of you are skeptical. Some of you think what we're doing is radical or dangerous or just plain foolish. And I understand, because 4 years ago, I thought the same thing." She told them her story. The arranged marriage, the dying estate, the desperate gamble to try something different. "We didn't have a choice," she said. "Traditional methods were killing us. So we tried something new, treating tenants as partners, prioritizing efficiency over prestige, building community instead of maintaining distance. And it worked." She presented the numbers. 43% value increase, 60% productivity gain, nearly 0 tenant turnover, debt completely paid off with surplus for expansion. "But here's what the numbers don't show," she continued. "They don't show families who aren't hungry anymore, children learning to read, tenants investing in improvements because they know they'll benefit, communities that don't just survive, they thrive." She paused, looking out at the crowd. Some faces were hostile, many were curious. A few looked desperate, like they'd been drowning and she'd just thrown them a rope. "You don't have to join our cooperative. You don't have to adopt our methods. But I'm asking you to consider, what's tradition worth if it destroys everything you're trying to preserve?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then Lord Ashworth stood up. "The Duchess is right." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I've been operating traditionally for 30 years, Shus," he continued, "and I've been losing money for 25 of them. 3 years ago, I started implementing her methods. Tenant partnership, efficiency reforms, practical management. My estate is now profitable for the first time since I inherited it." Another landowner stood. "Same here. I was 6 months from bankruptcy. The cooperative helped me restructure. I'm not only solvent, I'm expanding." Then another, and another. By the end of the session, 27 estates had requested information on joining the cooperative. That evening, Rowan found Eliza in the garden, staring at the sunset. "You did it," he said. "We did it. No, this was you, your vision, your courage, your refusal to give up." She leaned into him. "I'm exhausted." "You're magnificent." "Can I be both?" "Apparently." They stood there as the sun dropped below the horizon, painting everything gold. "Do you ever miss how things were?" she asked quietly. "Before all this, when it was simpler." "You mean when I was miserable and pushing everyone away?" "Fair point." "No," he said firmly. "I don't miss it. Not for a second. He gestured at the manor, the grounds, the life they'd built. "This is hard, but it's real. And I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy." "Me too." "Even when I'm difficult?" "Especially then, means you're feeling something." He kissed the top of her head. "I love you, in case I haven't said it today." "You've said it 3 times, but I'm not complaining." "Good, because I'm not stopping." The summit's second day brought the opposition they'd been expecting. A group of 12 landowners, old money, old families, old traditions, demanded a special session to present alternative viewpoints. Their spokesman was a man named Lord Pemberton, no relation to the banker, but equally rigid. "What the Duchess proposes," he said coldly, "is the destruction of everything that makes estate management dignified. Tenant partnership is a polite term for surrendering authority. Community investment means subsidizing laziness. This whole experiment is a perversion of natural order." "Natural order?" Lady Thornwood said sharply. "Like the natural order that's bankrupted half the estates in this region?" "Temporary difficulties. Decades of decline is not temporary. Nevertheless, mixing classes, giving tenants power over their landlords, women making decisions traditionally reserved for men, it's chaos pretending to be progress." Eliza stood up. "Lord Pemberton, may I ask a question? If you must. How's your estate doing financially?" His face reddened. "That's not relevant. It's entirely relevant. You're criticizing our methods. I'm asking about your results. The Pemberton estate has operated the same way for 200 years. And how much debt are you carrying?" Silence. "I'll take that as substantial," Eliza said. "Here's the truth. You're not opposing our methods because they don't work. You're opposing them because they threaten your worldview. Because if we're right, that means you've been wrong for decades. How dare you?" "I dare because I have the numbers. Blackmore's success isn't luck. Neither is Ashworth's, or Westfield's, or the other 30 estates we've helped restructure. We have proof. What do you have? Pride? Tradition? Debt?" Pemberton's face went purple. "You're a woman. What could you possibly understand about running an estate? More than you, apparently." She stepped closer. "I understand that people work harder when they're invested, that efficiency matters more than protocol, that cooperation beats isolation. And I understand that men like you would rather watch everything burn than admit you were wrong." The room erupted, some cheering, others outraged. Lord Ashworth banged his cane for order. "Enough. The Duchess has answered. Lord Pemberton, unless you have actual data to refute her claims, I suggest you sit down." Pemberton stormed out, his supporters following, but they were the minority. The vast majority stayed. By the summit's end, 41 estates had joined the cooperative. Another 20 requested consulting services. The movement had gone from 12 estates to 73 in 3 days. "You've started something unstoppable," Lady Catherine said, clasping Eliza's hands. We've started something, Eliza corrected. All of us. Perhaps. But you're the face of it, the symbol. That makes you powerful and a target. I can handle it. I hope so, because this is just the beginning. She was right. Over the next 2 years, the movement exploded. The women's cooperative became a political force. Legal reforms passed. Traditional power structures shifted. Estate management became less about lineage and more about competence. Not everyone was happy about it. Threats continued. Some estates faced boycotts from traditional suppliers. A few members received anonymous letters promising violence, but they held firm. And slowly, painfully slowly, the landscape changed. 7 years after Eliza first arrived at Blackmore, she stood in the same spot where she'd stepped off the carriage. Everything looked different. The manor gleamed with fresh paint and full windows. The grounds were alive, fields producing record yields, gardens full of flowers, cottages well-maintained and expanded. Children played near the community library. Workers chatted easily with management. "Hard to believe it's the same place," Rowan said, joining her. "It's not. Not really." "No, it's better." A carriage approached, the banker Pemberton, now a regular visitor and vocal advocate of their model. "Your Graces, I have news. Good news, I hope." The Crown has officially recognized the cooperative model. The King himself sent a letter commending the innovative approach to land management and suggesting other regions adopt similar systems. Eliza blinked. "The King? You've become a national example. There's even talk of a formal honor, Dame Commander, potentially." After he left, Eliza sat heavily on a bench. "You all right?" Rowan asked. "I think I just realized how far we've come. From a desperate bride in a dying estate to Dame Commander. That's quite a journey. So it doesn't feel real." "It's real. You earned it." He sat beside her. "Question is, what now?" "What do you mean?" "You've accomplished everything you set out to do. The estate's thriving. The movement's established. You've changed the entire system. What's next?" She looked at him. "What do you want to be next?" "Honestly?" He smiled. "I want to just be us for a while. No crises, no movements, just you and me and the life we've built." "That sounds boring." "That sounds perfect." "You're right. It does." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over their kingdom, not the kingdom they'd inherited, cold and dying and full of ghosts. The kingdom they'd built, together. 6 months later, Eliza stood in a different garden, holding a small bundle. "She has your eyes," Rowan whispered, looking down at their daughter. "And your stubbornness, probably." "Definitely." Their daughter, Eleanor, named for Eliza's mother, yawned and settled back to sleep. "Think we can do this?" Eliza asked. "Raise a child while running an estate and managing a regional cooperative? Probably not. That's honest. But we'll try anyway, because that's what we do. Attempt impossible things and somehow make them work." "Fair point." Annie appeared with Clara, both beaming. "Your Graces, there's about 40 people who want to meet the baby." "Already?" "The whole estate's celebrating. We've never had a birth in the Duke's family before. Not in living memory, anyway." The Blackmore line had nearly ended with Rowan, bitter, isolated, convinced he didn't deserve family. Now he was a father, and judging by the way he cradled Eleanor, already hopelessly devoted. "Let them in," Eliza said. She should meet her kingdom. The next hours were chaos. Tenants and staff taking turns cooing over Eleanor, bringing gifts, offering advice. Clara brought a hand-stitched blanket. Thomas carved a wooden rattle. Even Graves smiled, actual, genuine smiled, when he held her. "She's going to grow up so different from how I did," Rowan said that night after everyone left. "How so?" "Loved, secure, part of a community instead of isolated from it." He looked at Eliza. "You gave me that. This life, this future. We gave each other that. I was half dead when you arrived. You brought me back. You did the hard part, choosing to live again. Only because you made it worth it." Eleanor squirmed between them, making little noises. "She's hungry," Eliza said. "She's always hungry." "She's your daughter." They settled into the familiar rhythm of new parenthood, exhausting and beautiful and occasionally terrifying. But through it all, Eliza felt something she'd never expected when she first arrived at Blackmore. Peace. Not the absence of challenges. There would always be those. But the bone-deep certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do, with exactly the right person. A decade after the wedding, the estate held a celebration. Not for an anniversary, though they'd had several by now, each marked with real affection instead of cold duty. This was for the completion of the West Wing's final phase. The last room, the last detail, the last piece of the transformation. "It's official," Hewitt announced. "Blackmore Manor is fully rebuilt, better than before." Cheers erupted from the crowd gathered in the main hall. Eliza stood at the front with Rowan, Eleanor on her hip, their second child, a son named Edmund, holding Rowan's hand. "Speech?" someone called. Eliza laughed. "What's left to say? You all know what we've accomplished. You lived it." "Tell them anyway," Rowan said quietly. She took a breath. 10 years ago, I came here as a stranger. This place was dying. And so was the man I'd married. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't accept that this," she gestured around, "was how things had to be. So we tried something different, and we failed a lot. We made mistakes, took risks that nearly destroyed us, fought with each other and ourselves, but we kept trying. And somewhere along the way, we stopped surviving and started living. Built a community, changed a system. Proved that the old ways aren't the only ways." She looked at Rowan, who was watching her with undisguised love. "But more than that, we learned that broken things can be rebuilt, that people can change, that fear doesn't have to win. This estate is more than land and buildings now. It's proof that survival isn't just enduring harsh times, it's having the courage to transform them, to refuse to accept that pain is permanent or that the way things are is the way they have to be. So thank you, all of you, for believing in something better, for working toward it, for building this kingdom with us." The applause was deafening. Later, after the celebration wound down and children were tucked into bed, Eliza and Rowan stood in the rebuilt library. "You know what's strange?" Rowan said. "What?" "I used to think happiness was something that happened to other people, something I'd forfeited when Edmund died." He pulled her close. "Now I can't remember what that felt like, being that empty." "I remember," Eliza said softly. "You were terrifying." "Was I?" "Absolutely. Cold and distant and determined to push everyone away. And you stayed anyway." "I didn't have a choice at first, but then I did, and I chose to stay, chose to fight, chose to believe you were worth it." "Was I?" She kissed him. "Every single day." They stood there in the library full of books anyone could read, in a manor built for living rather than display, in an estate that thrived because everyone had a stake in its success. This was their kingdom, not inherited, not maintained through tradition, built from scratch through courage and stubbornness and the refusal to accept that broken meant beyond repair. "Do you ever think about the future?" Rowan asked. "What Eleanor and Edmund will inherit?" "Sometimes. I hope they inherit the kingdom we built, not the land, though they'll get that too. But the idea behind it, that you can change things, that you should try, even when it's hard. They'll have better examples than I did, than we both did." She squeezed his hand. "But they'll have us, and this place, and the knowledge that their parents turned a prison into a home." "A kingdom," Rowan corrected. "A kingdom," she agreed. Outside, the estate settled into night. Lights from tenant cottages dotted the darkness. The library still glowed, someone working late on a project. The community hall held a late meeting of the Farmers' Cooperative. Life, everywhere. Not the cold, dying silence that had greeted Eliza 10 years ago, but warmth, connection, purpose. "I love you," Rowan said suddenly. "I know." "No, I mean, I love you in ways I didn't know were possible. You're my wife and my partner and my best friend, and the person who saved me when I was too broken to save myself." "Rowan, let me finish. You could have left, should have left. I gave you every reason to. But you stayed and fought and refused to let me disappear. And because of that, I got this life. This incredible, impossible, beautiful life. Tears ran down Eliza's face. You gave me a life too, purpose, community, a home that's actually home. Then we're even. Not even close, but we can spend the rest of our lives trying. They kissed in the library they'd built together, in the manor they'd transformed, in the kingdom they'd forged from ruins. And in that moment, Eliza understood something fundamental. Survival had never been about enduring the harsh world. It had been about having the courage to transform it, to look at something broken and see possibility, to take a prison and make it a kingdom, to choose love over fear, hope over resignation, change over tradition. They'd done that together. And the kingdom they'd built, with all its imperfections and hard-won victories, was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever created. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And it was theirs.